You're holding a hot drink right now, or you were about an hour ago. Maybe you didn't think twice about it. Most people don't. But that one cup, that ordinary moment, is connected to one of the strangest stories in human history. Wars were fought over it. Empires were built around it. Entire continents were reshaped because of it. The drink is tea, and almost nothing on earth has moved through history quite like it. Before tea, there was a problem most people don't think about anymore. Water could kill you, not dramatically, slowly, invisibly. Untreated water carried disease. And in crowded towns, drinking straight from a river or well was a real gamble. People knew something was wrong, even if they didn't understand why, so they drank alcohol instead. Weak beer, watered wine, fermented anything, not for pleasure, for survival, children included. In a way, the world was mildly intoxicated most of the time, and no one had a better option. The story of tea begins in China, around 2700 BC. The real origin is older than written record. There's a famous legend about an emperor named Shen Nong. He's boiling water under a tree when dried leaves fall into his pot. He drinks it. He notices something. Did it happen exactly like that? No one knows. But by the time China had a written culture detailed enough to record daily life, tea was already there, already ancient, already woven into medicine, ritual, and routine. Tea wasn't a single discovery. It was more like a slow realization that this leaf, dried and steeped, could do something nothing else did. Chinese monks were among the first to understand what tea really offered. They needed to meditate for hours. Alcohol made that impossible. But tea kept the mind clear, and it kept the body alert, without the fog. So monasteries began growing it on purpose. They refined the preparation. They built rituals around it. From monasteries, tea moved to the imperial court. From the court, it moved to the merchant class. And within a few centuries, it traveled the full length of Chinese society. By the Tang dynasty, around 600 AD, tea was serious business. A scholar named Lu Yu wrote the first great book on tea, often called the Classic of Tea. It covered cultivation and preparation, water quality, tools and vessels. It treated tea the way we might treat architecture or philosophy, as a discipline, as an art. And that alone tells you something. China had decided this leaf mattered. Tea moved through culture the way important things often do. By making people want to gather, in China, the tea house became a public living room. It was part cafe, part courthouse, part news network. Business happened there. Disputes were settled there. The city thought out loud there. When tea reached Japan in the 9th century, Japan didn't just adopt it, they transformed it. The Japanese tea ceremony became one of the most deliberate rituals in human culture. Every gesture mattered. Every object was chosen. The ceremony was philosophy made physical. The same drink could mean very different things. Different cultures looked into it and saw different reflections. Not everyone welcomed tea. When tea arrived in Europe in the 1600s, it triggered real suspicion. Some physicians warned it was dangerous. Some clergy called it a vice. In England, pamphlets circulated claiming tea made men weak and women immoral. And around the same time, there was panic about coffee too. It sounds ridiculous now. But people were genuinely anxious because tea shops and coffeehouses weren't just places to drink. They were places to talk, freely, across social classes. Ideas moved in those rooms in a way taverns never quite allowed. Taverns were fogged with alcohol. These places were different. In 1675, King Charles II tried to shut the coffeehouses down. The backlash was immediate. He reversed the order in just 11 days. By then, the shift was already happening. Tea had started to win. By the 18th century, tea wasn't just a drink in Britain, it was an economic engine. The British East India Company built much of its power on the tea trade. Tea from China shipped west, taxed, and sold at huge markup. It was one of the most profitable commodities on earth. But it created a problem. How do you pay for it? China didn't want much from Britain. Trade was lopsided. Silver was flowing out of Europe and into China at a rate that alarmed British merchants and the crown. So the East India Company found another product to sell into China, opium grown in India. The consequences were catastrophic. 2 opium wars, forced trade treaties, territory lost, a humiliation so deep it's still remembered in China today. And it traces back in a straight line to the demand for tea. Across the Atlantic, tea played a different role. In 1773, the British government gave the East India Company a major advantage in selling tea to the American colonies. The colonists, already furious about taxation, saw it as one more provocation. On a cold December night in Boston Harbor, men disguised as Mohawk Indians boarded 3 ships. They threw 342 chests of tea into the water. The Boston Tea Party didn't start the American Revolution, but it accelerated it. Tea had become political. Drinking it was a statement. Refusing it was a statement. Within 2 years, the colonies were at war with Britain. Back in Britain, another crisis was brewing. Chinese tea was expensive, and China controlled the supply. Britain knew it was vulnerable, so they did something audacious. They stole it. A Scottish botanist named Robert Fortune traveled into China in disguise. He learned how tea was grown and processed. Then he smuggled plants, tools, and expertise out of the country. He did it twice. Those stolen plants were sent to India, to regions like Assam and Darjeeling. Within decades, India became one of the world's biggest tea producers. Britain had broken China's monopoly. A global supply chain was redrawn by one man with borrowed clothes and forged papers. But the system that built tea plantations also built enormous suffering. Workers were recruited under arrangements that offered little choice and even less protection. On many early plantations, conditions were brutal. Wages were barely symbolic. In a London drawing room, tea meant refinement and civilization. For the people harvesting the leaf, it could mean something else entirely. That tension is part of the story, not the whole story, but it doesn't disappear just because the tea tastes good. In the 20th century, tea adapted as it always had. The tea bag took off because of convenience. Ritual shortened, speed won, iced tea surged in popularity in the early 1900s, especially after it appeared at a major public fair during extreme heat, and it stuck. Then came bottled tea, canned tea, bubble tea, matcha lattes, kombucha. Each decade found a new way to carry the same leaf forward. Today, tea is the second most consumed drink on Earth, after water, more than 3 billion cups a day. At that scale, the numbers almost stop feeling real. So next time you fill a kettle, drop a bag into a mug, or order something green and frothy at a counter, consider what you're holding. A leaf monks used to stay awake. A leaf emperors turned into ceremony. A leaf smugglers carried across mountains. A leaf merchants turned into empire. A leaf revolutionaries threw into a harbor. It moved through centuries, continents, wars, and transformations. And somehow it arrived in your hand. It's still just hot water and a leaf, and it's still doing what it has always done.